Live from our 7 Tasmania studios, your nightly news with Kim Miller begins now.
Good evening, everyone. First tonight, a Tasmanian drug dealer who shot dead and mutilated a man in a callous act of evil has been sentenced to 32 years jail. Justice Robert Pearce described Jack Sadler's attack as a calculated, cold-blooded killing with no certain motive for the despicable crimes. A warning to viewers, this story includes graphic details.
Shot, cut up and dumped, Jake Anderson Bretner's life was callously ripped away at the hands of a man he once considered a mate. On August 15, 2018, the 24-year-old was shot at least 3 times, including twice through the heart. But it's what happened next that was even more disturbing. The 29-year-old butchered Mr. Anderson Bretner, throwing his torso off the Tasman highway at the Sidling before dumping his head, arms and legs into wheelie bins across Launceston. Only his torso was ever found, despite almost 2 weeks of searching for other body parts. The gruesome act said to have been inspired by American rap song Dead Body Disposal.
Just throw the bags away in various trash bins in different areas.
In sentencing, Justice Robert Pearce described the dismemberment as a gross indignity in the most crude and violent manner. He also stated he was not able to determine what motivated the crime, but cited the sale of drugs may have been to blame. When it came to Sadler's revolting crimes, there is an absence of any conduct of remorse. In addressing the impact of the murder on Mr. Anderson Bretner's family and friends, the traumatic effect will likely last the rest of their lives. Outside court, the victim's mother, Claudette, said while nothing will bring her son back, she has hope for his killer.
Every life is precious, even Jack's life is precious. He just went down the wrong road too. Jake finally got heard, and if that young man hopefully turns his life around, hope to God that he does. That's all I can hope for, While ever he's breathing, there's still hope that he can change.
Justice Robert Pearce told the court he chose not to impose a life sentence due to Sadler's lack of prior convictions and prospects for rehabilitation. He'll be eligible for parole after serving 20 years. Letitia Wallace, 7 Tasmania News.
2 teenagers are in a stable condition after a ute and trail bike collided last night. Emergency crews were called to Thompson's Lane in Unum just after 6 p.m. after the pair was thrown off the two-wheeler. The 17-year-old and 16-year-old boys were taken to the Launceston General Hospital with serious injuries. The driver was uninjured. Police say the teenagers weren't wearing helmets and the trail bike was unregistered and not fitted with any lights. It's the first day of Victoria's 4th lockdown and the state's vaccination system has cracked under pressure as thousands rushed to get COVID jabs. The outbreak is another devastating blow for Tasmanian businesses as the border once again slammed shut.
It's an eerie sight, but one that's become all too familiar for Melburnians. The snap into lockdown 4 almost feeling like muscle memory.
Oh, well, we've done it before, so we know we can do it again.
Been here, done that. You know what to do, so you just get on with it.
Not making the week-long restrictions any easier to face.
That's the thing. Plans cancelled again. It feels like we're back at the start.
After all the hard work we did last year, it seems a great shame.
4 new cases recorded overnight with more than 47,000 tests.
There are 39 active cases of coronavirus in Victoria. We recorded 4 new locally acquired cases yesterday. All of those are linked to the current outbreak, which is again a good thing.
While the Victorian vaccine hotline has gone into lockdown meltdown, people over the age of 40 queuing in the streets for hours on end. In Tasmania, last night the lines were outside the Hobart Airport as people rushed to get back into the state.
So we had a bit of a mad scramble along with the police and biosecurity to make sure we were ready for that.
Travel passes cancelled last minute.
So we had people waiting for up to an hour outside, but what was really great was people were quite accepting.
5 flights to and from the Hobart Airport dropped today. Dark Mofo announcing a delay on the release of tickets, still set to go ahead, but that could change.
Victoria is our number 1 partner in trade and also in tourism. This lockdown is another devastating blow for businesses.
The Chamber of Commerce wants the state government to put its money where its mouth is.
We need government to step up. We need government to understand when they make a decision that impacts businesses, they should put their hand in their pocket to help to cover it.
While there's been confusion over eligibility for COVID vaccines in the state,
we're working through all our priority cohorts.
The government's online booking system allowing anyone to make an appointment, regardless of whether they are within the priority groups.
I'd encourage Tasmanians to continue to be aware of when it's their turn to get vaccinated. You can get vaccinated at some local GPs as well as through the state-run clinic.
Victoria serving as a wake-up call to Tasmanians who've become complacent. Meg Sides, 7 Tasmania News.
Emergency departments in crisis mode, staff exhausted and distraught. That's how the Australian Medical Association has described Tasmania's hospitals. The government says it's taking action, but the peak body is pleading for urgent solutions, declaring a COVID outbreak could be catastrophic.
Visiting the classroom she's now in charge of, the new Education Minister is bringing nurses into every school.
We work with them around screening and prevention programs. We work around mental wellbeing. We work around reducing youth tobacco usage and obesity.
Out of the health portfolio, but not out of the firing line. Sarah Courtney left to defend the state's ability to respond to a COVID outbreak.
We have very strong plans in place to be able to escalate should we see coronavirus here in Tasmania.
Dishing out scathing criticism, the Medical Association says an outbreak or even a regular flu season could be a catastrophe.
We have staff who are now demoralised, a bit fragile, doing double shifts, feeling they need a break, feeling inadequate.
Saying the Hobart Emergency Department is the worst it's ever been. Just days ago, the government met with the health sector, but the AMA is now calling for a roundtable with senior clinicians.
It's a crisis situation that demands an urgent response, an emergency response that we need to see action on in the next week or so.
I think we are genuinely worried. So as an ANF rep, we have seen in other countries what happens when there is a true outbreak.
I'm confident that the health system has the plans in place to be able to cope should we have coronavirus here in Tasmania.
The nursing union says staff vacancies continue to have a serious impact.
It is tough to make sure that you're giving the same level of care every single day when, we have these staffing shortages.
Nurses say the Royal is so short on trained ICU staff that those in the north have even been asked to go south to cover shifts. The unions left worried the health system is on the brink of collapse. Josh Duggan, 7 Tasmania News.
Emergency services and key agencies have held urgent talks over what will happen when a major road into Alford closes in a matter of hours. Our reporter Meg Sides joins us now to explain more of those details. Good evening, Meg. Now, what measures have been put into place to help the community?
Well, Kim, everything from schooling to emergencies and roads were discussed with Alford residents preparing to be almost shut off from southern Tasmania. We heard on Wednesday a 1.5 kilometre stretch of the Tasman Highway just outside the town will be closed due to the risk of a rockfall. 30 students and more staff impacted by the closure are expected to attend a satellite school at the Buckland Hall from June 7. And in terms of emergency access, a helipad in the region will be made accessible at all times, and extra ambulance resources will be made available at Oatlands. It's also being determined how an alternative route along the unsealed Wylangatta Road is holding up, with severe weather on the way. The highway is due to close at 11:55 tonight, but Kim, no one will know exactly how long for until work gets underway to remove around 60 tonnes of rock.
Well, Deri has sold a dozen of its farms on the northwest coast. Australian company Prime Value has purchased 5,000 cows and more than 2,000 hectares for a price of $62 million. The land has not been Australian-owned for 25 years. Deri was recently embroiled in a waste scandal, receiving an environmental protection notice for poor effluent management systems installed at its farms. They've been there countless times before, but now Tasmania's search and rescue crews are returning to Cradle Mountain for a very different reason. The team behind the state's rescue helicopter is attempting to run the overland track to raise $30,000 for the service, and they're doing it with the clock ticking.
Head torches flash in the darkness at Dove Lake. It's bitterly cold and the path ahead is tough.
Good luck, ladies and gentlemen. Have a magnificent trip, safe running.
The crew have seen Cradle Mountain many times before, but never like this.
So we're going to run the overland track from Dove Lake down to Lake St Clair in an effort to raise money and raise awareness for the rescue helicopter and what we do.
Pilots, paramedics and police have all laced up for the run. The aim is to reach the end in under 14 hours.
Probably Tas police are probably the fittest of the lot, to be honest.
Not that it's a race. The only number that matters is the $30,000 donation target.
We obviously rely on community support to help the community.
The run will also provide valuable knowledge.
It is nice to be able to get a good look at some of the terrain that we work in. Some of these folks are having the worst day of their lives. They're lying on the ground, they're cold, they're wet, they're sore.
Luckily, those needing help are in good hands. The real challenge for pilot and former West Australian Gary Whitehead will be the cold.
I'm going to struggle.
Are you cold now?
Yes. I've been cold for about a year.
To make a donation, just head online. Sean McComish, 7 Tasmania News.
An ultra-marathon runner is preparing to eat as much junk food as he can when he tries to conquer an astonishing 250-mile run next week. John Kennell will push headfirst into freezing winds when he runs from Penguin down the overland track and as far south as Derwent Bridge before coming back to Penguin via Queenstown. Digesting enough food will be half the battle.
I've been training my stomach just as much as my body. This is actually an eating contest.
Kennell will power nap every few hours and take up to 5 days to complete the 250 miles. Big-hearted golfers have swung into action at a charity game for the state's homeless services. The Ratho Farm fundraiser, backed by cricketing legend David Boone, also saw another celebrity going to bat for the cause.
Hitting home the message.
Wrong green, but a good shot.
Test captain Tim Payne trades the pitch for the green, all in the name of helping the homeless.
A bit nervous, I haven't played golf for a while, but look, very happy to be out here supporting a good cause.
Nearly 80 golfers descended on Australia's oldest course at Ratho Farm, just outside Bothwell. But glory comes second on a day like this. The Common Ground Cup is all about supporting the Salvation Army program.
We've got a great turn up this year of people who are supporting us, and obviously the cause for Common Ground is one that's very dear to me and close to my heart.
It's the third time David Boone has hosted the event, and today we'll put more than a few dollars into one service desperately needed in Hobart.
We'd like to contribute to a commercial style kitchen this year. So we have an objective, and hopefully at the end of the day it will be a decent contribution.
We would love to be able to use the money to improve our commercial kitchen space, which can then complement our already operating cafe caravan out the front of Campbell Street.
A day with the clubs might not sound like hard work, but expect a few red faces.
I had Jordan Silk's Bucks Day on Saturday actually last week, and I hit about 20 balls, so that's about as much golf as I've played in a long time.
I had a swing at the last Common Ground Cup, and the time before that was the last Common Ground Cup before that.
Bit rusty, baby.
Maybe a little bit rusty, mate, but we'll be right, yeah.
Sean McComish, 7 Tasmania News.
The NAB League's cancellation this week has a silver lining for State League clubs who will have access to their Devils players, while Glenorchy is also welcoming Harrison Gunther back into the fold after a stint in the VFL. Harrison Gunther has spent the last 4 weeks in blue and white, but Paul Kennedy thinks he might not be back in black for long.
I'm adamant that at some point he'll be on a VFL list, whether it's after next week or the end of the year or in a couple of years' time, I don't know.
Gunther's return for the game against Clarence is timely given the news Tom Cleary has injured his ACL. North Hobart has more problems than just injuries after being flattened by the Tigers.
So there was periods there for about 5 minutes. I reckon they smothered the ball 5 or 6 times. They murdered us, really. Took us to the absolute cleaners.
While North Launceston is coming off a blazing victory over the Blues, but it isn't all rosy at York Park.
School football injuries and an under-17 trial game, we've got 21 unavailable players through 3 grades, so we've come off a really high, and now we're coming into another challenging week.
While an AFL Tasmania review is now underway into the state of the game, Glenorchy's coach voicing the need to focus on youth pathways.
The drop-off from about 13 to 18 is enormous, and that doesn't occur in other parts of Australia with Aussie rules footy.
And the collapse of the Women's State League.
We saw a situation on the weekend where our women's team played against Claremont who were the runaway premiers in the SFL last year, and it was a lopsided game, and you could just see the difference because one is a state league team and the other one's a community team.
Tomorrow, Glenorchy's women's team will face Clarence, the two former TSLW sides coming face-to-face in their new league. New recruit Joni Ransley is learning from the state league talent.
To be able to play with the best of the best.
Their match follows the men's game at Blunston tomorrow. The Kookaburras have gone back-to-back against New Zealand, winning 3-0. The goals were split up, coming in the first, second and fourth periods. Tasmanian co-captain Eddie Ockenden was all too happy to share the secret to their success.
You don't seem to run out of energy. What do you guys have for breakfast?
Weet-Bix, every day, so anyone out there. It's been 18 months training, so when you get to a game, I mean, it's just heaps of fun to play. Like, we've been training really hard and it's been a long time between games, so pretty enthusiastic once we get out there.
The team plays again on Sunday. Friday flashback time now, and it is 30 years to the day since Tasmania's last State of Origin match against Victoria. A forgotten thriller overshadowed by the Map's famous 1990 win the year before. Tasmania nearly produced a stunning repeat of its triumph, with only inaccuracy preventing another ball over. With the jubilation of 1990 fresh in Tasmanian minds, anticipation for the North Hobart Oval rematch was monumental. And when Brendan Gale marked and goaled 90 seconds into the contest, belief skyrocketed. Colin Alexander added to the frenzy with 2 more in the opening term. And although Simon Atkins and Paul Hudson also converted, Tasmania's wayward kicking had the Map only 6 points up at the main break. Regardless, a North Hobart crowd of 14,000 lapped up the energy as defenders like St Kilda's David Grant worked tirelessly to keep the visitors at bay. The unthinkable seemed palpable. A back-to-back walloping of the Big V was no pipe dream. Tasmania was 32 points up on the verge of three-quarter time. Despite Grant Williams putting on a spectacular show above his head, he could only convert a single goal in the final term.
Stabs, and it's a goal.
But when Victorian coach Rod Austin switched Ken Hinkley into attack, it changed the game. Hinkley would kick 4 in just over a quarter of play. That single-handedly diverted the dream from another famous win. Tasmania booting 14 goals and 20 behinds to lose by 12 points.
Well, the siren's obviously gone because everyone's charged onto the ground. We didn't hear it.
No, I didn't hear it at all.
It would be the last fair dinkum State of Origin match between the two states as Tasmania morphed into the Allies in 1995, combining with Queensland, New South Wales, the ACT and the Northern Territory. Despite periodic calls to bring back the concept, AFL State of Origin remains history.
Good evening. 11 the top in Hobart today, 12 in Launceston and Burnie. Devonport reached 13. King Island and Smithton also 13. 12 on Flinders Island, Low Head, St Helens and Bushy Park. 11 at Strawn, Grove 10, Lyweni -2 overnight up to just 2 degrees today. Cumulus cloud over the state with clear skies across the north. Further out in high level cloud over central Australia, middle level cloud over WA. Tomorrow a high will move northwest of Tasmania and continue to dominate much of the country's weather with stable conditions for most. Coastal waters and south to southwesterly winds at 5 to 15 knots, swells up to 2 metres. A frost warning has been issued for most areas tomorrow. The forecast now, a partly cloudy day in Hobart, 12, frost for Medina, 9 the top, Oatlands 8 degrees. Morning frost and sunny in Launceston and Devonport 11 degrees. Lyweni morning frost, a chilly 4 degrees on the way. Burnie sunny and 11, a partly cloudy day for Strawn, 12 for Marrawar. In the east, a fine day, 12 for St Helens and Swansea. Alford expecting 11 degrees. Turning to the 3-day forecast now, fine on Sunday, widespread morning frost. To Monday, a fine day with widespread morning frost once again. And on to Tuesday, another fine day, light showers for the west and far south. Perth tomorrow, showers and 21. Darwin, a sunny day and 32. 21 for Brisbane. Adelaide and Sydney, 17. Melbourne, 14. Canberra, a frosty start up to 13 degrees. And right now it's 7 in Hobart, 7 in Launceston and a chilly 5 degrees in Devonport. Kim, that wraps up the weather.
Thank you very much, Laura. Have a great weekend. And that is all your news for now. I'll be back later with updates and Lou will join you over the weekend. But for now, good night.